Okay. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I hope the audio's good. So, I will introduce you to myself. I'm Joseph Cairns, the CEO of Adventure Recruitment, and I'm from England, and that's where I first started into recruiting, and then I got headhunted myself, and I moved to California. But that was when I first got into games recruiting back in 2002. There'd been the dot-com crash. I'd been doing SAP recruiting. The market all went down, and we're like, well, what to do next? So we thought, well, games seems fun, and I started a firm in California called Stealth Interactive, which I sold in 2006. And I've loved traveling and seeing different parts of the world, so that was when I thought, well, why not move to India? I have an Indian wife, so that was kind of a connection. So we moved to Bangalore, and we've been going for 17 years now as Adventure Recruitment. I have an excellent team. There are a total of 8 of us, many of whom have worked with me for over 10 years now, who are sort of lead recruiters and very good at their jobs. What's been nice to see, when I first got into recruiting in the US, I was recruiting for the big publishers like Electronic Arts and Activision, hiring people from Europe and relocating them to the US. But coming here to India, although we started doing a lot of, continuing doing US business, because there wasn't much here back then, there was just a lot of art outsourcing studios. But I've seen the Indian market grow so well, from back office companies like Zynga and Ubisoft coming in and setting up big operations, but now so many original products coming out of India is fantastic. So right now we're working with a whole range of some of the best developers in India, both big and small, people like Sony, Dream Games, Mayhem Nazara, some of the bigger ones, to new exciting startups like GigaFun and Studio Sira. So what we do is to help companies to find the best possible talent, and we help people to get better jobs, better salaries, better career growth. And we work across all of the main areas of game development. We specialize only in games, and then probably at least half of what we do is programmers. There's just huge demand for that. But then also, of course, artists, designers, product managers, producers. So I have about 27,000 connections on LinkedIn. So anybody who'd like to connect, I accept all connection requests from anyone in the industry. I've put up my details. So that's my quick introduction. They've asked me, as Rahul mentioned, they've asked me to talk about how to get off to a strong start in the games industry. So many of you probably know more about how to make games than I do, okay? But my team and I, we get to talk to hundreds, if not thousands, of successful people in the industry. We see how they interview. We see who gets offered jobs. We get to see which people progress very quickly in their careers. So what I'll try to do in this talk is to share some of my observations if you want to progress quickly in your career. This is, as Rahul mentioned, primarily focused on people at a junior or say up to mid-level situation in their careers. I think senior people might know a lot of this stuff already, but there might even be a few useful things for them as well. I hope it's useful for everyone. So what I first suggest is that you decide what it is that you want to do with your career. So what are your career objectives? So for example, do you want to work on exciting games? Do you want to grow your experience in a particular specialization of work? Do you want to grow into management? Do you want to become an expert in what you do? Now, you might be thinking, yes, I want all of these things, but often it comes at a compromise situation of what is more important to you. So for a designer, to work on an exciting game might be the most important thing. They don't care so much about the company or other aspects. People, especially as people grow as programmers, they decide whether they want to go down a management path. They may not enjoy that as much, or they can become a tech director and an architect. So it's important to think and plan ahead with your career and see what are the priorities for you. And then what do you want to get out of your career? Would you like to move abroad at some stage? Would you like to save lots of money and start your own studio? So everyone has these different goals, and for you to achieve yours, have you thought about where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years' time? And then to achieve it, you have to look at the next 3 to 6 months and breaking down measurable goals to achieve it. Okay, so you've maybe thought about what you'd like to do and you've planned out your career. What are studios actually looking for? So you'll have to choose what to specialize in, because companies have these big teams, there's very specific roles required, and it's important to pick something that you're passionate about, because if you really want to do well, you're going to have to put in a lot of work, and you'll only want to do that if you're enjoying what you're working on. So here's a summary of the main positions and also the salaries we see. Each year I try to give an update on the salary ranges that we're seeing. These are from tier 1 and tier 2 companies in the main sort of top 5 cities across India. So for game artists with 3 to 12 years experience, we're seeing 10 to 25 lakh salaries. So that includes all the subsets of animators, modelers, texture artists. Then there's tech artists who are in very high demand at about 20 to 50 lakhs. Then lead artists we're talking to, we see that they're typically earning 30 to 60 lakhs. This is the sort of there's a wide range. And I was talking to an art director last week. He's already on 76 lakhs and he wants an increase, so it's proving hard to find many companies paying that much. So these are still, there's people above and below these, but this is what maybe we see the 80% of people falling within these ranges. Game developers, 3 to 12 years experience, are making 15 to 40 lakhs. Lead programmers and tech directors are making 40 lakhs up to 1.5 crore. Some of the top tech directors, this is the cash portion, and they're making bigger bonuses and stock options, equity in the company on top of it. So it's been really, this is one big thing. When I first moved here, Indian salaries were maybe 1/10 of what we were used to seeing in the US. It's really good to see, especially at some of the top positions, people coming to maybe only a half or typically a third of the top Western rates, and obviously cost of living is less here. Designers with 3 to 10 years experience, typically 10 to 30 lakhs. Lead designers and design directors, 30 to 70 lakhs. Producers and product managers, 20 to 50 lakhs. And lead product managers and exec producers, which is especially the lead product managers, seems to be a very high demand area, 50 lakhs to 1.5 crore. Okay, so assuming you've planned what kind of position you'd like to be working in, or you're already working in it, if you want to become an expert, you're going to need to be very good at the tools needed for your job. Now, I would imagine you probably already know what tools are needed for your job, but in case you don't, you can just look at the job descriptions at various companies for the kinds of positions you're interested in and see what tools are necessary. So for example, if you're a developer, it's probably going to be Unreal or Unity or Amazon Web Services, or you could start looking at what's coming out with ChatGPT and some of the new technologies from there. If you're an artist, then there's Photoshop, Max, Maya, ZBrush, the Midjourney. If you're a producer, it might not be so much an application, but a methodology. So Scrum and Agile is important to know. So are you an expert in these tools? If you ask yourself that question, are you up to date with the latest features? Do you take time out to continually keep learning? It's very easy to get caught up in your job and doing things the same way, and there's so much work to be done that you don't take time out. Sometimes it can be a bit like taking 2 steps back to learn a new way of doing things, but then to move 3 steps forward and to improve. And if you do make the time and effort, sometimes you have to do that outside of your regular work hours. That will give you an edge to perform better than most of the other guys and girls out there to progress in your career. And there's really so many resources available online. There's really no excuse not to be able to continually keep learning. Okay, so assuming you know what you want to be doing in your career path that you'd like to progress into, how can you get yourself a great job? Now, the 2 obvious sort of old but tried and tested methods, you can apply for jobs on LinkedIn or other job portals. And the job alert feature is very useful on LinkedIn if you haven't set that up, so that you can be immediately notified of any suitable jobs and you can be one of the first to apply. And then, of course, you can apply to companies directly, but to figure out which ones to apply to, you just need to do a search of the top 50, top 100 companies across India, and then go through and find the suitable ones and apply. So those are the more common ways. I've got 3 extra ways for you. Really the best way, which I believe about 70 or 80% of jobs are actually filled by, is referrals, or you could call it recommendations. So that's when somebody is working at a company and they know you and they recommend you to the hiring manager. So that's the main way to do it, but it's a little tricky to just suddenly decide, oh, I want to be recommended for jobs. It's something that you have to plan and build your reputation, right? Starting when you're at college with your seniors or your professors, that you're somebody who's got a good reputation, that they would potentially recommend, because all these people are going to go on, get jobs, work at different companies. And then when you're working in your colleagues, your boss in your first job and future jobs, that you're building this reputation so that they would recommend you in the future. Now, there's also networking. So attending conferences like all of you here are doing is a great way to do it, and community meetups, widening your network of people. Then working with a recruitment company. So when you get very experienced at what you do, you may find you have the problem of too many company HR people reaching out to you. And you don't want to do loads of interviews, loads of tests. It can be a waste of time if they don't even have a good enough position, they're not paying the right salary for you. So then a company like ours can help you filter out opportunities, get to understand exactly what you're looking for, pre-screen with the clients that, how much they're willing to pay, if it's something exciting and new that's come up. So if you have more than 3 years experience and you're very good at what you're doing, we'd be very happy to have a chat with you. And I hope all of you progress in your career at some point where we'll be reaching out to you. Okay, so let's assume you've found the places that you'd like to work, how can you write a great resume? Well, first off, I'd like to put things in perspective that lots of people get rejected because of a bad resume, but I've never known anyone hired just because they wrote such a nice resume that it looks so nice. I mean, obviously they got great experience and stuff's going to help, but it's not just how you word your resume. More important is how you interview and the referrals and recommendations people will give on you, that, as we've just spoken about. But that said, when you do apply for a job, make sure that your resume has a nice summary at the top, or your most recent position matches with the job you're applying for. And different companies often word the same thing in different ways. So, for example, a company looking for a programmer, some of them call it an engineer, some call it a developer, some call it a programming position, so you can match the words. Or if you're applying for a product manager position, you can write at the top, I am seeking a product manager position to work on new and exciting games. Usually the first gatekeepers looking at your resume are just going to be scanning for any reasons to reject you. And if you're putting things like that, they're going to think, oh, great, this person looks perfect. And then obviously show the tools. We talked about the tools necessary for the job. Show your experience using those. Show how you've progressed throughout your career, key achievements. And then try to do all of this as concisely as possible. I'd say if you're a junior to mid-level person, it should only be 1 or 2 pages. If you're very senior and you've got years and years in the industry, still keep that to 2 or 3 pages maximum. You can, if you're very keen, write a custom cover letter, but I recommend making sure you put at least a paragraph of text in the email or when you upload it to their website, just saying words to the effect of, hey, I think I'm very suitable for your position. I'm keen on your company. I can start very soon. I live nearby, or I'm willing to relocate to where you are, just to avoid getting rejected, to get through to the next rounds. So, now, how much to exaggerate? You may have heard this happens. And on your resume and in your interviews, I suggest that you never lie about your experience. We had an incident just last week with one of the top virtual reality game developers. They interviewed a candidate we'd presented. They'd done the 3 interviews. They decided they were going to offer him. They even verbally agreed the salary they were going to offer. Then when the HR went through their processes of collecting his pay slips, they found out, well, hold on a minute, you're actually only on half the salary you told us you were on. And so she confronted him and said, well, why have you done this? And he said, oh, well, I thought everyone does this. And, we spoke to them afterwards and said, is there anything that can be done? He just made a silly mistake. But the company has a policy. If you're caught lying, then they're not going to hire you. So be very careful to never never lie. And however, you can emphasize certain experience. So, for example, if you've got your first job as a QA tester, and then they let you start to do testing work, and maybe you've done 80% testing, 20% level design, when you put your resume together, you might want to start with your, I am a level designer who does some testing. That's what many people do. And so long as you can deliver, you can emphasize your most relevant experience to help. Okay. So portfolios, if you're an artist, your portfolio will be more important than your resume. And I have seen people hired just off the back of their portfolio. I've had art directors say, this guy's perfect, I want to hire this guy. I just need to have a quick chat with him and make sure he can string a sentence together. And as long as he can communicate to a basic level, he got the job. So it's necessary for artists, But for programmers and designers too, examples of your work will be very helpful, especially if you're new to the industry. If you're more senior, people tend to get only doing professional work, which they can't share. But if you do have it, it's always helpful. If you're new to the industry and you don't have any examples of your work from college, then you could do a training course like the ones Gamer to Maker do from Rahul, and they will help you develop your skills. You'll work and produce a portfolio of work during the course. And then at the end of it, I think they give introductions to companies to get your first job as well. So what about your LinkedIn profile?
Will you just show the previous slide once again?
Sure. You got it? Sure. So LinkedIn is a long-term project, but it's a very useful one to do. So I suggest you make sure you fill out all your details you can there. It's kind of like a shortened resume. You don't want to make it super long to read there. And then connect with people you know. This is a great way to keep in touch. I mean, you have your close friends, you have their numbers and you talk to them, but your sort of wider circle, those colleagues that you worked with, that you can connect with, maybe they go off and join another company, you didn't hear about it, or they've got a new phone number, a new email address. It's a great way to be able to keep in touch. And then it's great to get recommendations. So you can start by giving some recommendations. Then you can request ones from people who worked with you, or especially from your bosses as you go along. Request them if you've done good work for them. So this will start to help recruiters find you, and you'll start to be contacted by people about jobs. Okay, so assuming you found a good, you know what you want to do, you found a good company and they want to talk to you, how can you interview well? So first off, you need to research their company. Now, that might sound obvious, but we get feedback so often that, oh, the candidate's got great skills, but he didn't know anything about our company. He didn't even bother playing any of our games. So it's very important to take the time, find out where the company are located, how big they are, what's their history of games, Playing games can take a lot of time, but there's at least play a little bit of it, or a good shortcut is to go to YouTube and search on the game and gameplay and watch someone else who's played the whole thing and skip around and see the different fun parts and how people are enjoying the game. Then you can see if you have any connections working there. So especially if you've built your range of connections, you'll see, or maybe you've got mutual friends that then can give you some extra insights into the company and the interviewers. In particular, see if you know who you're going to be talking with, and if you can find out about them, find out about what their job is. You know, is this going to be a tech interview, or is it just an HR interview? Anything personal about them that can just help you break the ice and connect with them. Now, a kind of advanced technique that I suggest is to take time before the interview to clear your mind and think about things from the other person's point of view. So if you're thinking from their point of view, they're thinking, what kind of employee do they want? Do they want someone who's going to make them look good? Someone who they'll enjoy working with? Someone they can trust when they say they can get things done? So you might be surprised, a lot of even top senior guys, they're very good at the job, but they don't interview very often and they're not great at it. They'll often be showing off, I can do this, I can do that. Whereas the actual hiring manager doesn't want to show off who thinks he's the best person. He wants somebody who's going to be a good team member, a good collaborator with the rest of the team, someone who's actually going to be honest that, yeah, maybe there's areas he's good at, but when there's something he doesn't know, he says, oh, to be honest, I don't know, I haven't done that yet. So if you sort of set your mind frame before the interview, that can really help. Then be ready with examples. to show your passion and your aptitude for hard work. Show that you have a positive attitude. Don't get into, another quite common thing is people complaining about, oh, the game didn't get shipped, but it was because of this person or me, and or the game wasn't very good because of these reasons, rather than saying, well, it was great experience. We had these challenges and I learned this from it. And then show your curiosity and your eagerness to continually keep learning. Another advanced technique most people don't do, but I think it's very good to do, is at the end of the interview, don't be shy and ask them how you've done and what are the next steps. So you can say, you know, hey, I'm really keen on this. I've really enjoyed talking to you. How have I done? And, you know, what are the next steps from here? And if you get rejected, which everyone does, ask for feedback so you can improve in the future. So, you know, I understand I wasn't right for you at this time. Is there anything in particular I was lacking or something I could work on for the future? I'd really appreciate your feedback. Okay, so let's assume you've interviewed well and you're going to get an offer, or you think you may be about to get an offer. Then how can you make sure you get a good salary package? Well, first of all, I suggest you think about what salary you'd ideally like to get and what's the minimum you would accept, and then how best you can present your case to justify what you're looking for. Companies, if not at the beginning, they will certainly ask towards the end of the process what you're on and what you're looking for. So you need to be prepared for this. If you're at the start of your career, experience is probably the better thing to value rather than just who's going to pay you the most amount of money. Even from a financial point of view, to maximize your long-term earnings, it's more important to get good experience at the beginning than it is to just take the best salary. So a good answer if they ask you is to just say, hey, look, I'm really keen on working for you. You know, I'm open to a fair market rate as long as it covers my basic cost of living. And they'll see that you've got a good attitude and they will hopefully offer you the job. Then if you think it's still too low, you can maybe say, well, how much is it going to cost me for rent, for food and everything where you are? If you're currently employed and you don't exactly need a new job, then your situation will be quite different. But it still won't look good if you make it sound like money's the most important thing to you, even if that is the major driver for you changing jobs. So you have to think of a good way of presenting this. So, for example, you could say, hey, look, the most important thing for me is the chance to work on new and exciting projects, and I'm looking for a fair market rate. I'm currently only on 15 lakhs. I think a fair market rate might be 25 lakhs, but I'm open to considering whatever you think is fair. I realize that's a big increase. The reason I'm asking for that is my company hasn't been doing well financially. We haven't had pay reviews in the last 2 years. And two friends of mine who've got the same experience as me, they just left, and one of them's on 25 and one's on 30 lakhs. So, and then you need to practice this so you can say it very calmly and comfortably when you're asked about it. But the best way to get a good salary package is to get multiple offers or offers from multiple companies. And then, so long as you handle it delicately, you'll find that companies will put out their best possible offer. They'll also move as quickly as possible. They won't like it if they feel like you're playing one company against the other. But if you put it politely to say, hey, look, I'm expecting an offer by Electronic Arts by the end of next week, but I'm really keen on you, I'm more keen on your company, but I don't want to lose their offer. Would it be possible to complete our interviews by the end of next week? More often than not, that will really work. Or you could even mention the numbers. You could say, hey, look, I just got a job offer of 25 lakhs from Zinger. but I prefer your position. If you could match their offer, then I'd be happy to accept it. These methods usually work very well. Okay, so when you're progressing in your career, should you stay with one company or work for many companies? So I have an analogy that it's a bit like riding up in an elevator of your career and your career moving up. If everything's going great, you're getting promotions, you're getting more experience, you're getting to work on different things, then stick with that elevator and ride it as high and as fast as you can. But if things are slowing down, you're just doing the same old kind of work, then maybe it's a good time to consider switching. It's definitely not good to switch before a year. It won't look good on your resume if you've left within a year. But conversely, it's usually not good to stay with one company for more than 3 or 4 years. There's a kind of diminishing returns of your experience, and a lot of the top performers usually get experience from a range of companies. They broaden their experience, they learn different ways of doing things, get to work on different games and see different work cultures. But that said, when you do change jobs, don't expect a bigger title. So let's say you're a senior programmer, you want to become a lead programmer. Don't expect when you change that they're going to give you a lead programmer unless it's a much smaller company. The reason to change would be so that you get better career growth opportunities, better salary, different work experience, and hopefully they're a company that you've picked so that you could quickly progress into a lead position with them later on. So I suggest with your careers you take a slow and steady approach, and you always keep looking out and stay open-minded. There's an expression in England of the London bus rule. You wait and wait, nothing comes along, and then suddenly 3 buses come at the same time. So it might be all the times you really want a new job, you don't find the right thing, and then the time when you're not looking, 3 things may have come into your inbox or some messages for you to pay attention to. Even top people have less opportunities because they're at the top of the pyramid. So career growth takes patience, so don't get impatient or despondent if you don't immediately get what you want. Good luck with all of your careers. So I hope this is of use to you and you can all maximize your careers. It's definitely a great time to be in this growing and exciting industry. Feel free to email me directly or connect on LinkedIn. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, I think there's a microphone. Yes, one second. Yeah.
How are gaps important? Gaps looked at by recruiters in case of artists. Ultimately, your work matters, right? So
yes.
So how do gaps impact this or help this? Could you please?
What kind of gap? Are you talking about gaps with tools or gaps with the kind of?
Gaps in jobs, like 6 months or 1 year.
Ah, you mean a break in your career?
Yeah.
Well, it really comes down to the reason, right?
Yeah.
So what they're all thinking in their head, even if they don't ask it directly, was, were you fired, right? Or if you were, what was the, there may be layoffs. So if there's been a gap, a good answer to it is that I'd completed the project, it was a good time to leave, I wanted a break, or I had a family situation, something, they don't want to hear that you got fired, in which case it shouldn't be an issue if you've got the skills and you've got through. It's more of an issue, we talked earlier about the gateway people looking at your resume. They'll often see if someone's a job hopper, they'll bin the resume. If you've been out of work for 1.5 years, it looks odd. But if it's 3 months or 6 months and it's a gap previous to you're currently employed, then it's generally not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? you, I think. Yes. You want? Are they going to the back? Okay.
Hello. So I had a question that you said that you need to like get feedback. That you need to
Oh, there you
like
are.
get
Yes.
feedback when you're rejected, right?
If you can, yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask like how do we get in case that like most of the places that I have given interviews, right? So what they do is like after interview if we are getting rejected, right? So they just ghost us. Like they don't respond to our texts or anything. So how do we get that feedback in that case?
You're right, and it's a disappointing part, especially candidates will even do long tests. They'll work for days on tests, and then they'll ghost you, or you'll just get, sorry, we're not suitable at this time kind of thing. I don't know if I have an easy answer to that. As a recruitment company, we expect it from our clients, and we talk to them. We say, look, we need to know, because if we're going to find you a better person, just at least give us a sentence. I mean, we try to do it on the phone, but if it's HR and they're getting it from the hiring manager, we say at least get us a sentence or two on what they're looking for. But it's not always possible, but ask. A lot of people don't ask, so maybe you can get it sometimes. And if you have these contacts, like we talked about, finding out people who work at the company, if you've gone in through a referral, that will probably give you a very good reason, and they'll be very polite. They'll say, hey, look, I was keen to get you, this guy liked you, but they just found someone else who was more senior. You'll then get to find out. But if you're just going through the website or a LinkedIn job, it may be very unlikely you get it.
Thank you.
There's a gentleman at the front. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. So
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you if we are in our final year and we are seeking for internships. So what should we consider?
Sorry, you're sitting for?
If we are in our final years and
Yes.
we are seeking for internships,
You're
so
looking
what should we
yeah.
consider? Salary or experience?
Experience is my opinion. I mean, I don't want you to be, not be able to live comfortably. But apart from that, always experience. Yeah.
Hey Joseph,
Yes.
my name is Nalin Savara and I run a company. Now my question is that let's say as a company, as an entrepreneur or as a senior person who's working on his own, we are looking for freelance assignments, and one has realized that many times abroad typically it happens that somebody who's being paid for his time can make more in a short amount of time than a guy getting a salary. But over here what they do is that when somebody is negotiating for a salary, he has a lot of leeway. But if you are trying for an assignment, they will try to always short charge you. They will always try to cut the cost and do all sorts of things, including. So if you could share some of your lessons or learnings as on how that some of these could be leveraged in that context also.
Yes. So the freelancing market is definitely more common abroad. In the US, there are a lot of people who, they've worked in the industry for a number of years, they've built direct connections with people they've worked at different studios, who then get in touch and say, hey, we really need someone like you, but you're quite expensive, we only need you for 3 months. And then people enjoy working that way because you get a better pay rate, flexible work, remote hours from home, and you get a variety of things to work on. It's much more common. Here in India, we see very little of it. It's only like a consultant, like I just placed a design director advisor. He's in the UK, but he's an Indian guy who's helping a studio back here. So he's agreed to do like 8 hours a week as a contracting thing. There's a top studio art director who used to be on site at Druva, but he's a British guy. He's in Berlin right now. I know he takes on multiple projects like that. And those guys do earn great money, but it's because they've had very strong relationships where they've been full-time previously. If you're bidding for work, can you explain what kind of, is it with people you know, or is it you're bidding for projects and then they're trying to squeeze you a lot on the rate? What kind of thing is it?
I mean, like, typically, if you are somebody who's donating experience and knowledge to a project, then unless you own a team and you are taking on the entire project, in India at least, the people who are the HR people and the others who typically do the hunting for that,
Yes.
they do not try to take a nuanced approach to understand the value that is being brought.
Yes.
So it's typically the lowest outsourced bidder wins, typically.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, you might have some thoughts to share on that or some perspective.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that's the reality of the market. There's not so much of it. I mean, the points to emphasize, which we do when we're, people are like, oh, that guy's expensive, he wants that much per hour, is we say, well, you're only having to pay when you use him, and you're bringing in his expertise to help, which, you could hire a cheaper guy and have him on site full time, but it's going to take him a while to be productive, and he may make errors. Why not employ this expert and pay for him as and when you need him? It's not only about cost, it's about productivity, right? And risk. So if you can emphasize that you're going to be much more dependable, productive, flexible, you can emphasize those points. But you'll have to stick to your guns and say, this is my rate. I don't want to be the cheapest. I want to be the best. Please understand that's where I'm coming from. I'd love to work with you, but if you can't afford me, perhaps we can work in the future when it's more important for you.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Joseph.
Thank you.